Tolu stood in the middle of the living room, his tiny hands shaking. His blue shorts were stained with something dark, something red. His little lips quivered as he looked down at the lifeless body on the floor. It was Mama Grace, the woman who had always smiled at him, who had carried him on her back when he was younger, the woman who had been in their house for months, taking care of him and his baby sister. She was dead. A loud scream filled the house. It was his mother. "Tolu, what happened?" She ran into the living room, dropping her bag as she saw the terrible sight before her. Blood everywhere. The white curtains were stained and the floor was wet with it. Tolu couldn't speak. He just pointed his tiny fingers, still shaking. His mother followed his finger and her eyes widened in horror. There, standing near the kitchen door, was a man she had never seen before. His hands were red, his eyes were wild, and in his grip was baby Simi. The man smiled, his teeth showing like an animal's. "She's mine now." Tolu's mother screamed again. She ran towards him, towards her baby, but the man took a step back, gripping Simi even tighter. The last thing Tolu saw before everything turned black was his mother dropping to the floor, just like Mama Grace. It started on a normal afternoon. The sun was high and the sound of children playing outside filled the air. Tolu's mother, Mrs. Adebayo, was sitting in the living room, rocking baby Simi in her arms. She was exhausted. Being a mother of two and managing a job was hard. Tolu's father worked outside the city, only coming home once every few weeks. It was always up to her to care for the kids, and it was too much. Her friend Linda had a solution. "You need a nanny," Linda said, sipping her juice. "I know someone. She's amazing with kids." Mrs. Adebayo hesitated. "I don't know. I really don't trust strangers with my kids." Linda laughed. "Mama Grace isn't a stranger. She worked for my sister for years. She's kind, she's gentle. You'll love her." And just like that, Mama Grace entered their lives. She was a plump woman in her 50s with kind eyes and a soft voice. She smelled of vanilla and always had a sweet in her pocket for Tolu. "She's perfect," Mrs. Adebayo had told her husband over the phone, and for the next few months, things became easier, or so she thought. At first, everything was fine. Mama Grace was gentle, always humming old songs as she carried baby Simi on her back. She helped Tolu with his homework and made sure he ate all his food. But then, small things began to change. Tolu noticed it first. Sometimes, when his mother was at work, a man would come to the house. He never came inside, but he would stand by the gate, whispering to Mama Grace. Tolu once asked who he was. "Just an old friend," Mama Grace had said quickly. "Now go and play." But Tolu saw things. He saw the man slip small envelopes into Mama Grace's hand. He saw her glance around nervously, and one evening he saw the man pointing at baby Simi. Tolu didn't understand what was happening, but he knew one thing: he didn't like the man. He told his mother once, Mama Grace has a friend that comes to visit." His mother smiled, not even looking up from the food she was cooking. "She's allowed to have friends, Tolu." That was the first warning, the first sign, and it was ignored. One night, Tolu woke up to the sound of whispers. At first, he thought it was his mother on the phone, but as his eyes adjusted to the darkness, he realized the voices were coming from the living room. Slowly, he climbed down from his bed, careful not to wake baby Simi, who was sleeping in her crib. He tiptoed to the door and pressed his ear against it. "I told you to wait." Mama Grace's voice was slow but firm. "We don't have time," the man's voice responded. Tolu frowned. That was the same voice from the gate. There was silence, then a rustling sound, like paper being exchanged. "Tomorrow night," the man continued. "We take her tomorrow night." Tolu's heart started beating fast. Who were they talking about? His small hands gripped the door handle tightly, but he didn't open it. He knew Mama Grace would be angry if she found him listening. Instead, he took slow, quiet steps back to his bed and lay down, staring at the ceiling. Something was wrong, and whatever it was happening tomorrow night. The next day, Tolu couldn't focus. He didn't play, he didn't laugh, and didn't even touch the biscuits Mama Grace gave him. He wanted to tell his mother, but she was always rushing in and out of the house. She barely had time to listen. At exactly 8:30 p.m., his mother kissed his forehead. "Be good for Mama Grace," she said, grabbing her handbag. "I'll be back home late." Tolu wanted to scream, "Don't go," but he said nothing. The moment the door shut, Mama Grace locked it. "Tolu, time for bed," she said with a smile. But Tolu wasn't tired. He laid in bed, eyes wide open, listening. At exactly midnight, he heard the front door creak open. The man was inside. Tolu's body froze as he heard footsteps. A deep, rough voice spoke. "Where is the baby?" Mama Grace's voice was shaky. "She's sleeping. Let me..." "No time," the man interrupted. The footsteps moved closer. Tolu's heart was pounding. He had to do something. But before he could even sit up, he heard something he never expected. A scream. Mama Grace screamed so loudly that Tolu jumped up. Then the sound of something crashing. Then silence. Tolu forced himself to his feet and slowly pushed the door open. And that was when he saw it. Mama Grace was lying on the floor, blood pooling around her head, and standing near the kitchen door, holding baby Simi in one hand and a knife in the other, was the man from the gate. He smiled. "She's mine now." Mrs. Adebayo's taxi had just dropped her off when she got the call. Her hands were shaking as she held her phone to her ear. "Madam, come home now." It was the neighbor's voice, Mr. Osas. "Something is wrong. We heard screaming." The line went dead. Mrs. Adebayo didn't wait. She ran. She ran so fast her shoes almost flew off. By the time she reached the house, the door was open. Her eyes darted around the living room. Blood stains everywhere. Furniture were knocked over, and on the floor, Mama Grace. No, 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 no. She fell to her knees, pressing her hands on Mama Grace's cold face. What happened? What happened? Then she remembered. Tolu, Simi. She sprang to her feet, running towards the bedroom. She found Tolu sitting on the floor, his small body shaking. Her voice broke. "Tolu, where is your sister?" Tolu lifted his tiny hands, pointing towards the door. "She's gone." Mrs. Adebayo felt her world shatter. The police arrived quickly. Neighbors gathered, whispering in fear. She trusted that woman. She was so careful. How could this happen? But none of the whispers mattered. The only thing that mattered was baby Simi, and she was gone. For 2 days, the police searched. Nothing, no leads. Then on the 3rd day, a woman in the market called the police. "I saw a man with a baby," she said. Something felt wrong. The description matched Simi. Dark skin, a scar on her cheek. The police moved fast And when they found him, he was about to sell baby Simi. Mrs. Adebayo almost fainted when she heard the news. Her baby had been a product to these people. Mama Grace wasn't who they thought she was. She had been working with them all along. The police arrested the man. His name was Mr. Sunday. He was part of a group that sold babies, and Mama Grace, she had been helping them. For years, she worked as a nanny, gaining the trust of families, and when the time was right, she handed the children over. She had done it before, and she had planned to do it again, but something had gone wrong. Mama Grace got scared. Maybe she tried to stop it at the last minute. Maybe she changed her mind. But Mr. Sunday didn't care. He killed her and took the baby anyway. And if not for Tolu, if not that small voice in the night, Simi would have disappeared forever. Days passed. The house felt empty and cold. Tolu refused to sleep alone. His mother refused to hire help again. I should have listened, she whispered one night. You told me and I ignored. Tolu held her hands because deep down he knew she had learned the hardest lesson. You don't trust anyone with your children, not even those who smile. Simi was safe. She had no idea what happened. She would grow up never remembering that night. But Tolu would never forget, and his mother would never forgive herself. She told the story to every mother she knew. She warned them, pleaded with them. Be careful who you trust. Be careful who you leave your children with, because not every smile is kind, and not every hand is safe.